So my number one movie is The Lady and the Tramp from 1955. This is a Disney animated film directed by Clyde Giramoni and Wilford Jackson, starring the voices of Barbary Luddy, Larry Roberts, and Peggy Lee. The IMDb plot summary: the romantic tale of a sheltered uptown Cocker Spaniel dog and a streetwise downtown mutt. So I think it might be obvious to folks, even if they haven't seen this movie, why this is on my list. Is a very, very iconic scene, a romantic scene between the two dogs in an Italian restaurant. Nice music, nice, intimate table. And this is where they share their first kiss and kind of realize that they are in love with one another, the two dogs. And this is just such a classic scene that as a child definitely really cemented in my mind what like how sharing a meal could be a romantic gesture and what having a nice romantic dinner kind of looks like. And I associate all the things from this movie, Italian food, actually sharing the food that you're both eating, some nice music, like that candlelit dinner. All these things are what I associate romantic meals with, which I've had many of those over the years. But it definitely comes back to this movie feeling like why this is an important thing for me in developing a relationship with anyone, romantic relationship, is sharing a meal with them and really kind of getting to know them and bonding, I think, over food, like we've been mentioning in all these different ways over the last several films. And especially the last one we just talked about, how there can be a romantic component to it. And for me, as silly as it is, of a little cartoon from the 50s, I did watch this movie a lot as a child, and it definitely, that scene in particular, left enough of a lasting impression that I sort of associate food with romance. Yeah, I'll kind of pause there before getting into too much film you've seen before. And what are your thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, of course that scene is iconic and I knew of that, but I never watched the movie because I don't know,
Oh,
for some reason I just thought that, oh, this is, from that time period. Actually, it's not, because it is from the good Disney time period, but somehow I just put this in a bucket in my head that this is not, in the creme de la creme Disney era. But I was absolutely blown away by how incredible this movie is. I think this movie surprised me, and it's now probably in my top tier Disney
wow.
movies. It just, I loved it so much, like from the music and the animation and all of it, of course, and the romance between the two, but the deep characters of the lives that these two dogs have, the friend relationships
Mm-hmm.
that lady has, and then of course the central theme of how your life as a pet or your life as an older sibling gets totally changed when a baby enters your life,
Right.
and the relationship that you have with your parents or dog parents, how does that change?
Yeah.
All that is so deftly handled, and it's just beautiful, emotional, funny. It's signature Disney. They're just so good at this, so I loved it.
No, I actually personally consider this more of their middling ones. I'm the
Yeah.
biggest fan of this movie, so I'm happy to hear that you really liked it a lot. I actually had seen this a bunch as a kid and never really kind of went back to it. And I
Mm,
hadn't probably seen it in like 25 years or something. It was one of those movies, much like we covered 101 Dalmatians several episodes ago.
mm.
You brought that one to the podcast. And that is another movie I saw on repeat a lot as a kid and then just never kind of went back to it. And this one, coming back to it, again, I sort of feel overall it's a little bit boring. Obviously, the dogs are really cute, and I love movies with dogs, and I love dogs. So I also love the character of the tramp. He's such a cool
Yeah.
kind of guy. But it was interesting watching it this time, and then I'll get back to the meal scene. The overall message of the movie to me seemed to be more about freedom versus settling down. And lady wanted puppies, and she was kind of pampered in this household and wanted the domestic life. And a lot of what Tramp is in this, especially in the beginning of the movie, is talking about, oh, it's great to not be off leash, literally,
Right.
and be able to go anywhere. There's a great scene. They're up on the top of a hill, and he's looking over. This entire city is mine. I can
Beautiful.
go wherever I want. Look at this freedom. And then at the end of the movie, he ends up settling down and having puppies with Lady. And I didn't follow why he necessarily made that change. And then thinking, well, this is basically just Disney, especially this period of Disney, is all about conformity to the 2.5 kids in the suburban household. Kind of all these Disney movies of this era end up where they want to remove freedom, and it's all about conforming to this ideal of a, quote unquote, like perfect American family. So that
Hmm.
part was a little interesting of like, like I just don't see why he made that transition. I mean, maybe he loved Lady or something, and it was love that kind of tied him down in the world. I don't know. I thought that was a little odd. Did you?
I think it's love, but also like in the third act, like a lot of, stuff happens. Like, their lives are in danger and what have you. So I think it's a little bit of like, okay, enough of this. Like it's time to kind of settle down. But I agree.
Okay.
It is a little bit sort of heavy-handed in that sense. It would have been nice to show, like, if this movie were made now, what I would like is that, okay, you can settle in, but then be adventurous even once you're settled, and maybe that's the next chapter. Of course, they would not make that movie now, because now it'll be like, oh no, don't even settle, just be
right. That's true.
without leashes, because that's what's going to give you happiness. That's what they're going to make today. But I think there's a way to balance this out.
Yeah, like maybe they have puppies, but like they still wander, like they still travel a lot, and they don't have to be domesticated and have kids or something.
Yeah.
But there actually was a remake of this in the last 2 years, live action, that I've not seen, and I kind of wonder how they change it. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, getting back to that one scene, which is so iconic. Again, it's like all the trappings of what in my mind would be a romantic meal. And then that's where they share their first kiss because of food. They each pick up the end of the spaghetti, and then, the two dogs kiss, which is obviously not a realistic thing, but that is sort of signifies how food can literally bring people together in a romantic setting. And again, that whole scene is so iconic. And oddly enough, it was actually a scene that Walt Disney did not like and didn't want them to actually put in the film. And the animators just did it anyway and then showed it to him to prove that they can make it work, because he thought, you can't show romance like that between two dogs. It's going to come across kind of weird, and I don't really think it's going to work. And he was like very much trying to get it out of the script. So I'm glad that the animators rebelled, did it, and then proved to him that it does work, because again, that's the whole reason why this movie, I think, is so iconic and remembered, because of that scene with the Bella Notte song and the nice little candlelit. I mean, it's cool. Like it, and it does help me also associate in my mind with Italian food, with that romance, because I think of this as I think back to it as, it's basically, I watched this movie so much times as a kid. That's what I associate. A nice romantic dinner would be, Italian food as opposed to other different cuisines. I think, again, because they weren't eating sushi together in this meal. They were eating spaghetti.
Yeah. Although there is something, and I don't know, maybe this is because the movie or all the iconography of Italian food and culture, but there is something romantic about that, the expressiveness of it. And I guess you can find romance and connection no matter what kind of food you might be eating. But I guess opening a bento box and eating sushi feels different somehow, because the culture isn't very overtly expressive, versus I guess Italian culture is overtly expressive, and of course also in its flavors and spices, and so is Indian food. And so I guess there's something there. But yeah, you're right. Like I think that scene is iconic, but also central to the plot of the movie, because you have to buy that these people who come from different walks of life literally fall for each other and bring this change in each other. Because you're right, it would be an even bigger leap to then understand why does Tramp give up his unleashed life and settle down. It's because of that, because they really found something in each other. So
Right. It wasn't until that moment too in the film where they're going on quote unquote date. He's walking around showing them all the different things, but it's really in that moment over food and in that meal where they share their first kiss, and it's clear, they're in love. It's a Disney movie, so they can fall in love after meeting each other for 5 minutes. That's not realistic, but it's still, a fun kind of romantic dinner. I mean, honestly, if I were to think of the most romantic meal in any film, this is the one that comes to mind. and it just is like, I think I just watched it so much as a child that it's implanted on my mind of like the ultimate form of romance is two dogs rolling meatballs towards each other with their noses. But I'm happy to hear that this is now in your like Disney pantheon of one of your favorite Disney films.
I mean, I've only seen it the one time, so who
yeah.
knows? But at least for now, when I've watched it, I guess because I was expecting this to be just not great at all. Okay. And I was just completely blown away by how much I liked it. So I do want to watch it again to like officially put it in my pantheon, I should say.
Got it. Okay. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.